Oi, oi, oi. Welcome back, y'all. So let's just get right into it. So we left off Revelation at Revelation 12 yesterday. So that's where we begin. We begin. Yeah. Okay, the woman and the dragon. And a great sign appeared in heaven, and a woman clothed with the sun and the wait. I read this. We did read this. Dang it, now I mislabeled it and heard a loud voice. Now that, or maybe not. I think we just got through the first. Oh yeah, we got to this point. The 1260 days. Okay, yeah. So Satan thrown down to earth. Verse 7. Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated. And there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even unto death. So one of the things that I want to break down, because I read this when I read through Revelation last time off stream. Where did it say? It mentioned something about accusing, being the accuser. Yeah, right here. Whoops. This is confusing, this dual monitor setup. Okay. Explain Revelation 12 verse 10. Specifically, Satan's role and access to heaven as the accuser. In Revelation 12:10, the narrative reaches a cinematic turning point. The verse reads, well, we just read the verse. To understand Satan's role and his access to heaven here, we have to look at the legal and cosmic imagery being used. The divine courtroom, Satan as the accuser. The title accuser comes from the Greek word kategor, which is essentially a legal term for a prosecutor. In the biblical context, Satan's primary role isn't just evil tempter, it is prosecuting attorney. That's interesting. This strategy, he doesn't just want people to sin, he wants to use that sin as evidence to prove to God that humanity is unworthy of divine love or mercy. The frequency, the text says that he does this day and night. It is an unceasing, relentless effort to point out human failings, implying he still has access to heaven. So access to heaven, the open door, at least for now. A common misconception is that Satan was permanently barred from heaven the moment he first fell. However, various biblical texts, like the beginning of the book of Job, depict Satan as having a sort of backstage pass or standing in the heavenly courts. This is crazy. The Job parallel. In Job 1 and 2, Satan appears among the sons of God to present himself before the Lord, specifically to argue that Job is only faithful because he is blessed. The paradox: while he is spiritually fallen and morally separated from God, Revelation 12 suggests he maintained a functional presence in the heavenly realm, specifically to perform his role as a legal antagonist until this specific prophetic moment of being hurled down. The turning point, the hurling down. Revelation 12:10 marks the end of Satan's legal standing in heaven. The loud voice announces that the kingdom of God has arrived in a new, authoritative way. The access he once had to stand before God and point fingers at humanity is revoked. The reason being, this victory is tied to verse 11. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb. Okay, so that, I guess in the timeline, that's when it happened, was when Jesus was crucified. Essentially, the accuser loses his case because the blood of the Lamb, Jesus' sacrifice, functions as a superior legal defense that settles the debt of those being accursed. Okay. Many theologians view this hurling down as a spiritual reality inaugurated by the resurrection, while others see it as a literal future event during a period of tribulation. Regardless, the core theme is the loss of his voice in the presence of God. Yeah, that's really interesting. Let's move on. Actually, well, I'm going to save that one. By the word of their and they have conquered him, verse 11, and they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even unto death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short. Okay. Explain verse 12. A clean house. Yeah, this one here. So the woe, a displaced enemy. The second half is a grim warning for the earth and the sea. The word woe, oi, in Greek, is a term of deep lament or impending disaster. Satan is no longer a cosmic prosecutor. He has become a terrestrial fugitive here on earth. By mentioning both the earth and the sea, the text emphasizes that no corner of the physical world is exempt from this new phase of conflict. The psychology of the devil, filled with fury. This is one of the few places in the Bible that explicitly describes the emotional state or mindset of Satan. His fury isn't born of strength, but of defeat. He isn't attacking because he thinks he can win the ultimate war. He is attacking because he has already lost his position in heaven. The phrase, his time is short, is the catalyst for his rage. In military terms, this is a scorched earth policy. Because he knows his ultimate end is certain, he intends to cause as much collateral damage as possible in the window of time he has left. Very vindictive. Theologians often debate exactly what this short time refers to. The amillennial view, this short time is the entire age between Christ's first coming and his second coming. The futurist view, this refers specifically to the final 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation, which we read about yesterday. Okay. Verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she might be nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, which we learned a time is a year, and times is 2 years, and half a time is a half a year. So that's the 3.5 years referred to the latter half of the Great Tribulation, which is 7 years total. The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. We did read this, but that's okay. But the earth came to the help of the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the sand of the sea. The first beast. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its, which we learned is like a type of crown, but not a royal crown, just more like a silk band, it described it as, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. It's all pretty trippy. I want to see an image of this. Revelation 13, verse 1. I don't know if it'll give me an image or just like literally an image of the text, but we'll see. Okay, yeah. Just, well, it's kind of there. You can kind of see. I don't know if it shows, it does show this. Yeah. Obviously, this is symbolism, but just to kind of give you an idea of what's being described. Okay. And I saw the first beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. And so this, I believe, is meant to symbolize a coalition of nations coming together. Let me see if I explain. Revelation 13, verse 1 through... No. Through 3. Revelation 13 is one of the most vivid and symbolic chapters in the New Testament, focusing on the rise of the beast from the sea. To understand these verses, we have to look at the imagery through the lens of apocalyptic literature, which uses symbols to describe political and spiritual shifts. The sea, in biblical symbolism, the sea often represents the chaotic nations of the world or the restless masses of humanity. The anatomy, 7 heads, these are often interpreted as 7 hills, specifically pointing to Rome in a historical context, or 7 major world empires that have opposed God. Try not to yawn. Have opposed God throughout history. 10 horns and crowns. Horns represent power and authority. The 10 crowns suggest a coalition of leaders or a complete unified political force that exerts total control. Blasphemous names. This indicates that this power claims for itself the honors, titles, and authority that belong only to God. So this coalition, these powers will present themselves as godly beings, or maybe even just God. This description is, verse 2, the composite beast, referencing the leopard, but they had feet like those of a bear and the mouth of a lion. This description is a direct callback to the Old Testament book of Daniel, where Daniel sees 4 separate beasts representing different empires: Babylon, Medo-Persia? Never heard of that. Greece and Rome. Leopard, bear, and lion. By combining these into one animal, the text suggests this final beast inherits all the speed, crushing strength, and ferocity of the great empires that came before it. The source of power, the dragon, which is Satan, is the one who delegates his authority to this earthly power. It is a puppet regime for a spiritual darkness. Verse 3, the fatal wound. The death and resurrection. This is often seen as a counterfeit resurrection. We see that a lot in the symbolism in Revelation, where there's lots of counterfeit fakes, mimicry of like the resurrection, the false trinity, the Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. Lots of inversion in the demonic realm. The beast survives a mortal blow to its power or existence. The world's reaction, the healing of this wound, acts as a miracle that validates the beast's power in the eyes of the public. This leads to a global wonder and following, signifying a shift from mere political compliance to a form of worshipful devotion. I remember reading there's a book series called Left Behind. They're pretty good. I don't know I'm sure you can still buy them, but in those books it depicts this part here, the fake resurrection, as the Antichrist, the person, not the symbolism. Whoever that person is going to be, the Antichrist getting assassinated, so getting shot in the head and then being resurrected. So before he presents as a peaceful leader, the Antichrist, to unite the nations. Then he gets assassinated. Then when he's resurrected, he comes back and then he's like evil, full blown, devil incarnate. Is the wound referring to a mortal wound to the person that will be? I just like to read about the different interpretations. It's hard to say what's actually going to be, whether it's fully symbolic or whether it actually references a person. Interpretations of the fatal wound in Revelation 13 generally fall into two camps. One sees it as a literal person, the individual Antichrist, and another that sees it as a system or empire. Since the Bible often uses kings and kingdoms interchangeably, many scholars argue that both can be true at once. Here is a breakdown of the primary views. First view, the literal person view. Many modern interpreters believe the wound refers to a specific individual, the Antichrist, who survives a literal assassination attempt or a fatal injury. A lot of people were, of course, saying this was, Trump's the Antichrist because of what happened in Butler, but not quite the same thing, I don't think. A counterfeit resurrection. Just as Jesus died and rose again, the Antichrist is believed to mimic this miracle to deceive the world. Trump gave credit to God for that, by the way, which is why I say that. Satan, unable to truly give life, may use a lying wonder to make it appear as though the man was raised from the dead. The mark of authority. Verse 14 later mentions that the world is told to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. This suggests that the healing is what establishes his cult of personality and demands global worship. Okay, I'm going to leave that there and come back to the scripture. Because it's interesting. It says, so verse 3 here, one of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound. Seemed, not did, which it references here that it's actually a lie because the devil can't give life. So it's still deception. Seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. 42 months. In Revelation, ESV 13, what is the significance of in Revelation 13:5, the 42 months is a crucial timestamp in biblical prophecy. It represents the specific window of time during which the beast is permitted to exercise absolute authority and utter blasphemies against God. To understand it, we have to look at how this number connects to other prophetic timelines in the Bible, mathematical equivalents. Oh, that's back to the 3.5 years, 1,260 days. Okay. A period of limited authority. The most immediate significance is that the beast's power is finite. The text says that the beast was given authority to act for this duration. This implies that while the beast is terrifying, he is still under the ultimate sovereignty of God. he is on a leash with a specific expiration date. The Great Tribulation connection, most scholars associate this 42-month period with the second half of Daniel's 70th week, a week being a year, I believe, in biblical terms. The Great Tribulation, where the beast breaks his covenant, sets up the abomination of desolation and begins intense persecution of believers. So that's so okay. So is the beast at his peak power, if you will, during the same time period as the two witnesses being on earth, which we read about yesterday. The relationship between the beast's 42-month reign and the two witnesses' 1260-day ministry is one of the most debated timeline questions in Revelation. Since 42 months equals 1,260 days, which is, that number is exactly what the Bible says. That's how long the two witnesses will be here on earth to prophesy before they're killed and then resurrected. Since those are equal, most scholars agree that they occur during the same general period, but there are two primary ways to look at how they overlap. The simultaneous view. In this view, the two timelines run exactly parallel. The conflict, while the beast is at his peak power, blaspheming God and demanding worship, the two witnesses are standing in Jerusalem, performing miracles, shutting the sky, calling down fire, to strike back against his authority. The climax, Revelation 11:7, explicitly states that when the two witnesses finish their testimony, the beast from the abyss, the same one that we just read about, attacks and kills them. Significance, this suggests that God doesn't leave the beast's reign unchallenged, even at the height of evil. There is a powerful supernatural witness for the truth. Then there's the consecutive view, changing of the guard. Some interpreters believe that the 1,260 days of the two witnesses happened in the first half of the 7-year period, and the beast's 42 months of absolute authority happened in the second. We just read through this yesterday, and I don't agree with that. I mean, what do I know? But we just read it yesterday, so if you want to watch that video and get caught up, it's really interesting. But yeah, the way that it reads to me, it seems pretty straightforward that it's view number one here. But anyway, so let's go back to the scripture. How do you open his mouth to utter? Also it allowed. Okay, verse 7. No. Verse 6. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation, and all who dwell on earth will worship it. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword he must. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. What does that mean? Explain. Revelation. ESV 13:10. Revelation 13:10 is a pivotal verse that serves as a pastoral pause in the middle of a vision concerning the rise of the beast In the preceding verses of Revelation 13, John describes a beast rising out of the sea who is given authority by Satan to make war on the saints. This represents a period of intense political persecution. Allusion to Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah. The first half of the verse is a strong echo of Jeremiah 15:2 and Jeremiah 43:11. In those Old Testament passages, God tells the people of Israel that judgment is coming and it is unavoidable. By quoting this, Revelation is suggesting a form of divine sovereignty. It conveys that events are not spinning out of control. The suffering of the faithful is known to God. There is a destiny or a limit to the chaos. Two ways to interpret the sword. Scholars and theologians generally view the warning about the sword in two ways. The path of non-resistance. It warns Christians not to take up arms and to fight the beast. If they try to use the sword to save themselves, they will perish by it. Echoing Jesus' words in Matthew 26:52, the victory of the saints is won through martyrdom and witness, not military force. Man, the certainty of persecution, it is a somber acknowledgement that for some, the path of following Christ will lead to prison or death. It warns that escaping the beast reach through human cleverness is not the goal. So, okay, the idea being that if you're alive at this point, this means that you were not saved during the rapture. So there is a way to avoid having to live through, like if the rapture comes in our lifetime, and I believe it will, there is a way to avoid all of this, just so it's understood, in case anybody that isn't well informed to this point, maybe you just come across the video, there's a way to avoid all of this. So this isn't saying that there is if you follow Christ, you're going to have to go through this. This is for the people that are not saved when Jesus comes back. So that's the rapture. So Jesus is going to come back. Everyone that's saved is going to be taken up. And those people that are saved do not have to go through this great tribulation. But if you are not saved and you do have to live through the tribulation, you still have an opportunity to be saved, although your path to salvation is going to be a lot more difficult. So you're going to have to live through all of the things that the tribulation is going to bring. And there's no guarantee that you'll survive, right? So you'll still have a chance to give your life over to God and be saved. But yeah, you're just going to have to suffer and die for it. Die a physical death for it. So, yeah, I mean, in that way, it really is a somber acknowledgement. But that's why it's so important to just live for him now. You don't have to go through this. Okay, so the call to endurance. The final sentence is the moral of the verse. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. In the original Greek, the word for endurance is hypomone, which means steadfastness or brave patience. It isn't a passive giving up. It's a stubborn refusal to let go of faith despite the physical consequences. The verse essentially tells the reader, since this struggle is inevitable and allowed by God, your job is to stay faithful and endure. What are we at? We're almost right there at 30, so we'll finish this chapter here. The second beast. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. So this is referencing the false prophet that will come and convince everyone to worship the beast. So this is often interpreted as like a unifying of political powers and the church. And the church the false church will turn against God, but God will still have some believers. uh, on the earth at that time, but it'll deceive a lot of people and they'll turn to worship the beast. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. So build some kind of like statue to the beast. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. So this one's interesting because a lot of people think, and I'm not entirely convinced they're wrong, that this could be eventually, not, I mean, maybe soon. I don't think anytime soon, but who knows, maybe 10 years, early as 10 years, 20 years, that this eventually, this image they're talking about to give breath to the image will be some kind of manifestation of AI. So now we're at 30 minutes. I think let me highlight this and then we'll pick up here because I want to do a breakdown on this. This part's really interesting, but yeah, we're going to leave it there for now. So don't forget to subscribe and Equal Opportunity 100 at work RN, but I'll pull up with my crew for your next stream. Add me on Discord. Oh, straight up, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe and guys, just I hope this isn't meant to scare anybody, although it is very scary. I remember growing up learning about this stuff in passing. I never really read it for myself. I was too young to really even understand, but I used to have nightmares about this stuff. But I think it's important to say that just remember, like, you don't have to live through this stuff. It's up to you. I mean, you can give your life over to Christ now, and you don't have to you don't have to live through this time period. And based off what we've read already, I mean, if you just go back a few videos and if you read through what Revelation says the days on earth will be like how society will be when the end times come, and then you look at stuff like what was it, last year or the year before, when they at the Olympics, when they mocked the Last Supper with transvestites and just all the BS going on now. It's hard to deny that society's kind of just going to pot. So anyway, just remember, it's your choice. You still have a choice. It's not too late. Just don't wait too long. So anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. Peace and love, and God bless you guys.